On a late September evening in suburban Chicago, the air was thick with anticipation and tension. The city's quiet neighborhoods, usually winding down for the night, were suddenly alive with the energy of a community on edge. A planned protest outside the Broadview Processing Center, a facility known for holding immigrants awaiting deportation, escalated rapidly as more people arrived than organizers had expected. Protesters gathered to oppose recent federal immigration crackdowns that had spread fear and uncertainty in local immigrant communities, with many families worried about loved ones being detained or deported. The demonstration, part of a larger movement sweeping the country, was a direct response to aggressive enforcement actions across the region. It was a moment when local voices joined a national outcry. Among the crowd was Kat Abughazaleh, a young Democratic congressional candidate whose presence highlighted the intersection of local politics and national immigration debates. Her speech called for compassion and reform, resonating with many in attendance. The Broadview facility had become a symbol of what activists called a secretive and inhumane system, where families were separated and detainees often lacked basic rights. Stories of poor conditions inside, including overcrowding and lack of medical care, fueled the urgency of the protest. Demonstrators aimed to challenge federal authority, demand transparency, and shine a light on what they saw as grave injustices. As the sun set, chants grew louder, echoing through the streets. The protesters' determination was clear. They were there to be seen, heard, and to stand in solidarity with affected families, refusing to let their voices be silenced. This set the stage for a dramatic confrontation that would soon draw national attention, marking a pivotal moment in the ongoing struggle for justice and accountability. Tensions reached a boiling point when Kat Abughazaleh and a determined group of activists staged a sit-in, refusing to move from the street despite mounting pressure from authorities and onlookers. Their target was an unmarked ICE vehicle, which they believed was holding a fellow protester in custody, possibly facing deportation. Linking arms tightly, the protesters formed a human barricade, their bodies creating an unbreakable chain across the road. This act of civil disobedience marked a shift, from a vocal demonstration to a bold act of direct action, raising the stakes for everyone involved. The standoff that followed was fraught with tension, protesters on one side, federal agents on the other, each unwilling to back down. For what felt like hours, both sides waited, each watching for the other to make the first move, the air thick with anticipation. Protesters came prepared, donning gas masks and protective gear, bracing themselves for the possibility of chemical agents or forceful removal. They knew the risks, arrest, injury, or worse, but their resolve was unwavering, fueled by a deep sense of justice and solidarity. Chants of, "Let them go," rang out, echoing through the streets as federal agents formed a rigid line, their faces set and unmoving. The agents' body language made it clear. Their patience was wearing thin, and a confrontation seemed inevitable. The decision to block the vehicle was not made lightly. It was a calculated risk, a deliberate act to halt ICE operations and draw attention to their cause. By disrupting ICE, the protesters sent a powerful message about the depth of community resistance and the lengths they were willing to go. Putting their bodies on the line, they demonstrated a level of commitment that could not be ignored by authorities or the public. Their actions demanded attention, forcing the issue into the spotlight and making it impossible for officials to look away. The confrontation, captured on camera by bystanders and news crews, quickly spread online, igniting a national debate about immigration and protest tactics. What began as a local protest had now become a flashpoint, symbolizing the country's deep divide over immigration and the power of collective action. The standoff broke when armed, masked federal agents emerged, demanding protesters clear the way. Protesters refused, standing firm as agents advanced. One agent confronted Kat Abughazaleh, shoving her to the ground, a moment caught on video and replayed nationwide. Abughazaleh, shaken but undeterred, returned to the front, only to be pushed again. The agents escalated, firing pepper balls and deploying tear gas, sending the crowd into chaos. Protesters claimed the use of force was excessive and unprovoked, especially against unarmed demonstrators. The air filled with gas, cries of pain replaced chants, and people scattered to help the injured. Abughazaleh later alleged the ICE vehicle nearly ran someone over, adding controversy to the night. The agents cleared a path, but at the cost of injuries and public outrage. The incident would soon spark a national conversation about protest and law enforcement. In the aftermath of the chaotic protest, Kat Abughazaleh took to social media, posting a video that captured the moment she was forcefully thrown to the ground by federal agents. In her post, she called the incident a clear violation of her First Amendment rights, emphasizing that the right to protest and document public events is fundamental to democracy. Her video quickly spread, drawing attention to the aggressive tactics used by law enforcement. Abughazaleh described the agents' actions as a violent abuse of power, arguing that both she and her fellow protesters were victims of federal overreach. She recounted how the agents' response escalated tensions, leaving many demonstrators feeling unsafe and targeted simply for exercising their rights. Despite her own injuries, Abughazaleh was quick to shift the focus away from herself, highlighting the ongoing suffering faced by immigrant communities. She spoke passionately about the broader cause, reminding her audience that the protest was about justice and dignity for all, not just her personal experience. She underscored the peaceful nature of the demonstration, describing the signs, chants, and songs that filled the air. Abughazaleh contrasted this with the heavily militarized response from federal agents, questioning why such force was necessary against nonviolent protesters. Her narrative resonated widely, sparking a wave of sympathy and outrage online. Social media platforms lit up with support for Abughazaleh and the protesters, as people across the country shared her story and condemned the authorities' actions. Daniel Biss, a fellow candidate and the city's mayor, publicly backed her account. He described the agents' tactics as terrifying and unnecessary, lending further credibility to Abughazaleh's claims and amplifying calls for accountability. Both Abughazaleh and Biss insisted they would not be intimidated, framing the federal response as a deliberate attempt to silence dissent and discourage future protests. Their determination inspired others to speak out as well. Their testimonies painted a vivid picture of deliberate intimidation by federal agents, arguing that these actions went far beyond what was necessary for law enforcement, and instead aimed to suppress free expression. As the protesters' side of the story quickly gained traction, it fueled a national debate about the limits of government power and the right to protest, ensuring that their voices would not be easily silenced. Federal officials quickly countered the protesters' narrative, painting a starkly different picture. The Department of Homeland Security labeled the crowd as rioters, accusing them of criminal acts like assault and property damage. Tricia McLaughlin, DHS spokesperson, dismissed Abughazaleh as a publicity seeker, accusing her of endangering officers for political gain. ICE echoed these claims, calling the protest a threat to safety and security. Officials insisted the agents' use of force was justified, blaming protesters for creating a dangerous situation. DHS also claimed local police refused to assist, highlighting tensions between federal and local authorities. The official narrative agents acted in self-defense against a lawless crowd. The video of Abughazaleh's confrontation went viral, igniting fierce debate across social media. Supporters saw it as evidence of state brutality and a violation of protest rights, using hashtags like #AbolishIC. Activists and celebrities amplified the video, framing Abughazaleh as a hero standing up to oppression. Critics, meanwhile, argued she was an agitator breaking the law, echoing official statements. Commentators insisted impeding a federal operation was a crime, accusing her of seeking fame. The same footage became a Rorschach test, interpreted as either righteous defiance or reckless lawlessness. Online comment sections turned toxic, reflecting deep national divisions. The Broadview incident was no longer local. It was a symbol of America's polarization. Social media became the new battleground for the nation's soul. The online firestorm quickly spilled into politics, forcing officials to take sides. Illinois Democrats, including Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson, condemned the agents' actions and stood with protesters. They framed the incident as federal overreach and a violation of civil rights. The presence of Abughazaleh and Biss at the protest solidified Democratic alignment with the demonstrators. For Democrats, it was about defending free speech and assembly against an aggressive federal government. Republicans, meanwhile, defended ICE and condemned the protesters as lawless. They argued that interfering with federal agents threatened law and order and national security. The incident became a proxy war for the nation's immigration debate, with little middle ground. The confrontation forced politicians to declare their allegiance, turning a local protest into a national litmus test. The Broadview protest was a direct result of Operation Midway Blitz, a major ICE crackdown in Chicago. The operation aimed to target crime by undocumented immigrants, but was seen by many as a politicized, aggressive move. Chicago's status as a sanctuary city made it a focal point, with local policies clashing with federal enforcement. The federal government viewed sanctuary policies as obstructing justice, while locals saw them as protecting communities. The operation created fear and anger, with activists organizing protests and sharing stories of poor conditions inside detention centers. Allegations of overcrowding and inhumane treatment fueled outrage and galvanized support. Similar protests erupted in other cities, some resulting in arrests of politicians and activists. The confrontation with Abughazaleh was the culmination of weeks of rising tension. It symbolized the broader struggle over immigration policy and the rights of vulnerable communities. The events in suburban Chicago offer a stark snapshot of protest and law enforcement in modern America. The incident, with a congressional candidate thrown to the ground, highlights deep divisions and conflicting narratives. It raises questions about the balance between protest rights and state authority, especially amid controversial laws. As activists turn to direct action, law enforcement responds with increasing force, escalating the risk of violence. Social media amplifies these divisions, turning viral moments into national flashpoints. The truth becomes secondary to political narrative, with each side seeing only what fits their worldview. The story of the anti-ICE protest is about a nation struggling with identity, justice, and belonging. The image of Abughazaleh on the ground is a symbol of a fractured society, forcing us to confront who we are and who we want to be.